Hello there, Internet and you amazing creatures of the beyond. So let's discuss a bit about focusing and multitasking. It's like, what is this Panda going to tell us about it this time, huh? Well, uh, actually, you would be amazed how many people are lacking focus and think that multitasking is just this skill that is maybe or unattainable or it is too easy for others. But in reality, um, the issue with focusing is that many of us tackle a task or a challenge in one go. So, for example, let's say you have to sort out cutlery. Well, let's say pens of different shapes and sizes and colors and so on, because I have difficulty pronouncing cutlery. Damn it. Okay, so pens and um, other bureautics such as keys and um, pencils and rubber bands and erasers, and they're all put together in a pile in front of you. And you're like, I have to sort this. How am I gonna do this? So the brain just looks at everything at once and sees all of this amalgamation and just you put your hand on whatever you can grab and you just put it in various piles and think like I'm gonna sort it afterwards, and the brain is just trying to see like, what did I pick in this hand? It's like a rubber band, an eraser, pencil, and this and that, and it's like, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? And you just put it in one side and you take another and it's like, where do I put this over the other one? And it's very annoying and frustrating, and it just makes you go like, I just want to throw everything and just burn it down. But the reality is that the brain by default, without any, let's say, training, can focus on two or three items or actions at a time. And that is kind of like what we do in multitasking. Like, for example, if you want to use both your hands to draw two lines, you can do that. So that's multitasking. Obviously, it's the basic information that I'm trying to relay here. But if we find ourselves that we overload our mind with too much information, we we just kind of go into this stimulus overload, because like the brain cannot comprehend the information and doesn't know what you want to do. So you have to define each individual task. So you have to break it up in simpler steps. So in this case, you would have to look for every pencil and pick them one by one, put them in a pile. Every rubber band, the same, in a different pile. This improves your focus. Of course, it becomes monotonous, but the more you focus, the easier it is for you to locate each thing. And the brain kind of teaches itself to identify elements without you focusing too much, but at the same time, your level of organization and focus increase drastically. And the same happens with the efficiency of your time, because when you have everything set up in the correct piles, it's so much easier for you to put them in the correct location where they belong to. So, take arranging a step-by-step plan makes your focus level go high, and then the multitasking can become second nature. So you can use both your hands to select both a rubber band and a pen at the same time if your brain is not overloaded with too many things in its hand. That's just a very simple example. Um, but how do you build focus? Because it's easy to say like, just do this and that. How do you train it? And actually, it's a skill that you teach yourself. It's not something that you're born with, obviously. And it doesn't really focus that much on the age, but kids are easier to comprehend this due to how the brain develops. It's more like a sponge of information, while elder people kind of, well, depending on their age and the state of or the condition of the brain that it is for them, they can have lack of information or lack of memory and so on that can impede them to better develop focus. But if you're up to, let's say, 60, you will be okay. Um, so a simple way to train focus is like when you have a river in front of you. So a river is a body of water that flows from left to right, let's say, and in the middle you have a series of rocks that you have to step on to get to the other side. So in order to do that, your brain has to focus on each setting of your foot on the stone so you do not slip, and you have to analyze where you have to put your next foot and so on. And in that moment, you're filtering out all the external information that is out there, like sounds, colors, sorry, I mean objects, people, and so on. So you just focus directly only on the stone and on the foot. Nothing else matters for you in that moment. So that means you have to filter out everything else. The same happens when you're starting to read. If your priority when you're reading the information becomes irrelevant to you or very low priority, you're like, well, I don't really want to bother myself doing this. So your first thought in that moment is like, I want to think of something that makes me feel pleasure or go online and scroll through the internet. Because our brain, our neurons, activate specifically. It's like sort of a reward system. So the moment you think of the internet and the social media in general, your brain is like, I'm gonna feel rewarded for going there and maybe replying instantly to all the messages that I have received, you know? And we do not take time to analyze or to understand what the information is at that moment. Because for us, once we have that device in our hand, be it a computer, a TV, or a phone, especially a phone, we feel compelled to feel that satisfaction that we achieve something by replying to a comment or seeing that latest video that popped up, because it feels like we are not missing out on anything. And this can be very dangerous for us because we bombard ourselves with so much information that is not relevant to our existence or our survival, yet we give it the biggest priority ever. Like, without it, we will not be able to survive. And this can lead to a very dark path where it becomes a habit, actually an addiction, because the moment you stop and you detach from it, you feel like something is amiss, something is missing out of your life. Without that information, you feel irrelevant, you feel unsafe, you feel like you cannot exist in the real world without having that certain information that comes through your device. And it's a very dark path to go, because if you do not take this, the brain requires this detachment from something that you are invested too much into, because the brain is constantly observant. Be it if you're, there are two ways of being observant: active and passive. And when you're active and you're focusing your full observation on it, it's like you're truly reading something that captivates you and you feel it's important for you. But passively, your brain constantly monitors your health, your breathing, your environment, the heat, and so many things. It's so complex. So the moment it overloads those parts of your brain that cannot cope with the rest, it starts to mess up with your internal levels of health, because the brain has to sacrifice some of that passive attention so you can focus on things that are not relevant. So if you do it constant, staying on your phone 24/7, for example, that's totally unhealthy for your brain. It interrupts the natural flow, which leads to psychical issues later on down the road, and even physical ones, of course. So we have to balance that out. It's very important. But we're straying away from focus. The idea of focus is that when you are in front of your phone and scrolling, you're not really focusing on the information, because once it becomes a habit, you're just scrolling and scrolling just to have something to do. It's like smoking. You have to do something with your hands. The same is here. So you're not really concentrating on the information as long as there is something to scroll through. So your brain tries to passively collect that information, but since it's not relevant, it's putting you on the fence of not understanding what you're looking at. And well, you understand what you're looking at, but 5 seconds from now, after you finish watching that, you will not remember what you watched, or you will not be thinking of that. So that means that you're not focused. So selecting the information that you want to watch and being in control of that is more important than letting the stream of information control you. And I know it's tough um, to munch on all of these aspects, but the moment you lose that control of what information you want to focus on, and the information you belong to the information, which is something that social media and media companies in general invest a lot of resources to do that to you, because you bring revenue by staying on their ads, by I don't know, buying something that is flashy to you, and so on, from various manipulation techniques. So you have to invest a lot of time within yourself to feel comfortable with what you do, instead of letting things control your life. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. I'm just trying to organize my own thoughts. So yeah, it's a tough cookie to crack, but the point is that you are capable of develop your skills of focus and multitasking. It just requires you to invest a bit in patience, and to transform those activities that you do in general that require your focus to be more fun and appealing to you, so that you can kind of satisfy your neurons, your neuron activity. Okay, guys, stay awesome. I'll catch you in the next episode, and bye 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 bye.